Hello and welcome to today's webinar, which is to help you prepare for the Tour du Mont Blanc. We will be starting today with conditions and weather updates and moving on to some helpful information to help you prepare for the Tour du Mont Blanc. Thank you everyone who sent through questions. We have a lot of questions for the question and answer session at the end. The team who are presenting are Craig, Erin and Minna, and this presentation is aimed at people who are travelling with us on the Tour du Mont Blanc this year, but it's also available to anyone interested in the walk. It might help you visualise the experience. So I'm just going to show you the team here. Say hello. And I'll just hand you over to Erin, who's just going to introduce the experience.
Yes. Hi everyone, welcome to the Tour du Mont Blanc webinar today from Max HQ here in Glasgow. My name's Erin, I'm the Customer Experience Manager at Max Adventure, and I'm also the Tour du Mont Blanc's #1 fan. I've worked in different aspects of the trip over the last few years at Max Adventure and was lucky enough to go out on the trip myself back in August 2015. So I know it really well, and I know what a brilliant experience it is. So really excited to see that there's so many of you joining us today to help you prepare a bit better, to get excited and answer any questions that you've got about the trip. I'll be doing that today with Craig and Minna, and I think we've got a lot to cover, so we can just crack on.
Yeah, let's do it.
Craig's first.
Cool. Hi everyone, I'm Craig. I'm one of the specialists for our Tour du Mont Blanc itineraries. I'll be having a quick look at the weather and conditions. We actually covered this in our previous webinar back in June, which is a bit more relevant. In the last couple of years, we have had some snow towards the end of June, which has caused some problems on the route. This year, that wasn't the case, and we've had a fantastic season so far. So as you can see on the screen, there are a couple of links to the weather forecast sites that we use. So I'd always recommend just checking on the weather. You never know, it could snow next week, it could snow in September, so always check. I'll also be going through just the sort of next couple of days forecast. So as you can see, over the next sort of 6 days, we're looking at some great weather. The best point to focus on this screen is the freezing level. So as you can see, this is about 4,500 metres for the majority of the week. Now that's a really high freezing point, so it should melt off any existing snow from the winter. So the trail is in a very good condition at the moment. As I said before, always check the weather just before you head out, as this can change and we can't really predict snow, particularly in this part of the world. Just moving on to some of the webcams, just to have a look at the live conditions. So these screenshots were taken yesterday. As you can see, Courmayeur at the Val Ferret, it's very nice, very dry, there's no snow at all. Again, on the Col route, you can see there's not really any snow at all on the trail. Okay, so far so good, but as I said, always check the weather just before you head out. Okay, if you do come across some snow, this is called neve. So this has basically been snow which has been melted because of the sun and the warm temperatures, and becomes a very, very hard layer of ice. So when you're crossing neve, just trust your judgment. Make sure you take your time, as it's really slippy. In regards to the temperature and the weather, make sure you wear plenty of sun cream or sunblock. Minna will actually go into more detail later about the exact kit list and what to bring. Yep, again, in regards to the weather forecast, as well as doing your own checks, you can always check with the local accommodations. They sort of have got a better idea of the weather, what's going to be coming in, and the conditions on the trail. So definitely check with the receptionist or the accommodation staff. They're probably the best people. Again, know your own limits. So if you are crossing some snow, take your time. We do have some alternative transport options. So if you are struggling with a particular stage, or there is snow, which is unlikely at this point, and there are different options to skip a particular stage. Again, I've just put the links on the screen for you there. We also have a link that you can follow just to have a look at the forecast, and so you can use this just before you head out, just to check the weather. Okay, I'll pass you back to Erin, who's going to discuss just about our self-guided adventures and what's involved.
So those of you that have already signed up for the trip with us will know that all of our itineraries on the Tour du Mont Blanc are self-guided. That means that we will give you everything that you need in order to head out onto the trail every day independently rather than with a group, and we'll make sure that you've got everything that you need in order to follow the trail at your own pace and make the most of it in the way that you want to. In my experience, the Tour du Mont Blanc is really an ideal self-guided trip because the paths are really well walked, it's very well waymarked, and the best thing about the Tour du Mont Blanc is probably the camaraderie and the people that you meet along the way. So doing it self-guided gives you the chance to sort of, like I say, take it at your own pace and gives you the chance to meet all of the people along the way. So like I say, we will make sure that you've got everything that you need. First of all, we will have your maps, which you can take with you. There's also the Tour du Mont Blanc guidebook, which is really invaluable because it's got lots of tips and things that you can follow along the way as well. You will also have your information pack, which will include your accommodation lists. That'll have the directions to your accommodations, phone numbers and websites, and also our bad weather and alternative transport document. That's a really invaluable document to make sure that you have in your pack as well. If bad weather does set in, or for whatever reason you need to skip a section, it's got all of the different sections on all of the different itineraries, and it will help you skip any sections that you need to. As well as that, you will have your invoice so that you'll be able to see exactly what you have and have not booked, and your luggage labels as well. We're going to go into luggage and baggage transfers in more detail later on, but if you have got baggage transfers included on your trip, you will need these too. What's really important is that you're not on your own just because it's self-guided. We're always here for you. We have a 24-hour helpline as well as our specialists who are in the office. So there's plenty of support that you'll be able to enjoy it your own way. When you get into your accommodation, all you'll need to do is give them your name. At the very most, you might need to say that you've booked through Max Adventure, but they all know us really well. Most of the team here have stayed with them at different points, and they'll look after you really well on arrival.
So this year, we launched an app. Would you believe it? So the IT team have been working very hard, and we've got a number of different routes and trails for a majority of our trips, our main trips. The Tour du Mont Blanc trail is available in the app, so I would recommend you download it. It is available on Android and iOS. Okay, it is free, so all the information and all the routes are on there available for you to download. I would certainly recommend downloading them either at home before you head out, or if you're on the trail in one of the accommodations when you've got Wi-Fi. And you can save the route so you can access it offline, and that will obviously save you battery. I wouldn't just rely on using the app. I would still take the maps just in case you do run out of battery or you have some sort of fault with your phone. So don't just rely on the app, but also take out your information kit. Okay. So just going back to the app, after this webinar, we'll have the links for you to download the app. Okay, so moving on, as Erin discussed, we'll be going into more details about the bag transfers. So this is an optional extra, and we have sent out an email just via our marketing stream a couple of days ago, just to make sure that everyone knows if a bag transfer has been added to their booking. So it's always best just to double check that. It's on your invoice, just as a little line as itself. So it is an optional extra. If you do want the baggage transfer and you notice it's not on your invoice, then please contact either myself, Minna, or one of the other Tour du Mont Blanc specialists, and we can certainly add that to your booking. So the way that bag transfer works is your baggage is collected at each accommodation in the morning and transported to the next place. Not every place is available for the bag transfer option. For example, Refuge Benate, the Refuge Elisabetta, and the Refuge Lac Blanc, just because there's no road access. So it does vary on the itinerary that you've booked, but we'll be able to give you some more information about where it's applicable and where we can't do the bag transfer. We also ask you to just limit the bags to 15 kilograms per bag. This is just to look after the bag handlers. Also, they'll be lifting the bags on and off a van, so we don't want them carrying a sort of 60 kilogram bag. Just think of their backs. So your bags are taken to the next accommodation, so you just need to carry your day pack. So it's a very useful sort of extra to have. So if you don't have it already and you would like it, please contact us. We can also provide the bag storage. Again, this is an optional extra. So it is included within the price if you go for the baggage transfer. And basically we store the bags for the duration of the trip. So picking it up in the Zouch, keeping it, and then dropping it in your final accommodation in Chamonix. So please let us know how many bags you require to be stored. Again, just to let our bag handlers know how many bags to be transferred, how many to be stored. It just makes it easier for everyone in the logistics side of the transfer. As well as the bag transfers, we can provide the airport shuttle transfers from Geneva Airport. So we use a company called Mountain Drop-Offs, and they'll collect you as soon as you arrive at Geneva Airport. And we're unable to provide transfers from the city centre and only from the airport. Again, just due to logistics, and the price is significantly more expensive from the city centre, so we only operate it from the airport. We will need your flight details and a mobile contact number. So the company get in contact with you directly to your phone, and they just send over a text the night before, just confirming your transfer, and they'll also send you an email. As I said, this is an additional extra, so if you haven't booked this, then you can certainly contact either myself or one of the team, and we can add that to your booking. There's also other ways to get to and from Chamonix, so this is just one option. So please get in touch if you'd like us to arrange this for you.
Perfect. Hi guys, I'm Minna, and I'm going to help guide you through what you need to pack for this trip. Packing is one of the, I find, always quite exciting part of a trip because you're getting ready for all the fun you're going to have. But it can also be a little bit daunting because what do you take with? What do you need? What do you not need? Number one for this trip, I'd say bring layers. It can be really warm during the day and can cool right down in the evenings, especially if you're staying up in the huts. So bring lots of layers. You never know what's going to happen, so bring waterproofs as well. If you're carrying your own backpack, I'd say try not to pack too much. In the end, you'll probably wear the same t-shirt like the entire trip. Or switch between two. So I'd say try to pack as light as possible, especially if you're carrying your own bags. If you have the baggage transfer, then again, hopefully your backpack isn't too big anyways, because all you'll really need to be carrying is your lunch, water, extra layers, and for the nights that you don't have baggage transfer, just something to sleep in and a toothbrush is really enough. Luckily enough on this trail, most everyone out in the area is out walking, so there's no need to dress up in the evening, unless you really want to, but no one else will be dressed up. So yeah, lots of layers. You probably will need a travel towel for the mountain huts, especially if you're looking to shower. We also recommend you bringing a silk sleeping bag liner because the huts, they have big, like the blankets you'd have on your couch. They're these sort of big blankets. They don't really have sheets on them, so most of the huts actually require you to have silk sleeping bag liners, and they're really lightweight, so it won't be a problem to carry them at all. And we always recommend you to sort of bring with first aid kit and any medications that you need beyond the first aid kit. You might think it's a good idea to put your medication in your bag transfer. I'd say you keep it on you just in case if something happens with your baggage transfer, you don't get it at night and you need medication, then please just carry it on you. There is a pharmacy in Chamonix if you do need to pick anything up, but again, if you know you're going to need something, please just bring it with yourself. Your blister kit is always a good idea as well. Your boots probably fit perfectly now, but maybe after 10 days of walking, you still can get blisters. Also, it's really important to walk in your boots. There's nothing worse than breaking your boots on the first day of a really long hike and suffering the consequences for the rest of your walk. Walking poles, I really would recommend as well. You can pick those up in Chamonix if you want. I do understand a lot of you guys are flying in for this walk, and walking poles don't fit really well in your bag. So you can pick them up in Chamonix if you want. You probably will need them for the sort of descents. Some of the descents are quite large, so it really puts a lot of pressure on your knees, which can be a little bit taxing at times. And of course, sunscreen, sunglasses, sun hat. Sometimes you don't realize how hot it's going to be, and if you just stay hydrated. You don't want to get heat stroke or anything like that, because a lot of the places are pretty not sheltered, so you can't really go sit in the shade to cool down. So sunscreen, lots and lots of sunscreen. We also recommend in preparation to this trip that you get yourself travel insurance. Knock on wood, nothing happens, but if you have to get heli evacuated out, you want to have insurance. Usually the insurance just needs to cover 2,600 meters, and most sort of normal outdoorsy insurance tend to do that. If you look at the link, you can look and see, you can go find some more information about the travel insurance. Off to the next slide. In preparation, I would let out money. You'll need francs and euros. When you're in Switzerland, the buses, you'll need to pay in cash, so it's best to have coins to pay with that. They will accept notes, but it's best to have coins. You can pick up Swiss francs in Geneva Airport and euros, just in case you haven't had time to do that at home. If you do pay, you can pay in euros in Switzerland. However, they charge you one-to-one price, which is a really bad exchange rate. So if you don't want to get screwed over, I'd recommend getting some Swiss francs. Perfect. Yeah, there are cash machines in Courmayeur and Chamonix. In case you need a little bit more, you've sort of underestimated how much you'd be spending. The amount of money you need to bring kind of varies. We roughly say 30 euros a day, but that usually will cover your meal and a beer, maybe coffee if you want it, but if you're planning on buying a bottle of champagne, you probably need a little bit more. Perfect. And I'm hoping all you guys have been preparing for your trip and walking tons and getting outside. The more you train for this, the better, the more fun it's going to be. We do say you can kind of walk yourself fit, but this is a tough walk. Yeah, and the more you prepare, the more fun you'll have. And just take your time. The days are long, so don't rush it, especially if you feel yourself sort of wearing out quite quickly. I wouldn't push yourself too hard at the beginning as well, just because you have to get used to the altitude. Altitude's always an interesting one to walk at. Some people don't get affected by it at all, and other people feel it immediately. So just take it at your own pace. This is the joy of a self-guided trip. No one's going to push you harder than yourself. So yeah, just take your time. And if you do have any concerns, talk to your doctor. Make sure that you're all clear to go, because you don't want anything to happen when you're out there. If you are feeling like you're not fit enough to do some of the walking, there are sort of some transportation that you can take. It's all detailed in your info pack, sort of the day-by-day cable cars, buses that you can take. However, some of the areas are quite remote. So, if you're not feeling 100%, maybe don't walk up to that hut that has no road access, and the only way to get to is to walk down. Perfect. And Craig covered the sort of arriving and departing. We do arrange shuttles for you if you want. You can get there by public transport. It's a little bit tedious. You have to change trains. It's 3 hours, and it costs roughly the same. So we do kind of just recommend booking a shuttle to make it as pain-free as possible for yourself. So I guess now Aaron and Craig can join me again in the talking. Yeah, so just going to answer some popular questions, some people that ask questions. Erin, do you want to cover the huts?
Yeah, so everybody always wants to know what the huts are actually like. Are they as basic as they sound? They are certainly more basic than the hotels, but they are also the most interesting places you'll stay at. It's where you will find the atmosphere is really communal, because everybody sits and eats together. You all eat at the same time. So they've got a really great atmosphere, and for me they were my favourite places to stay when I was on the walk. In terms of the sleeping arrangements, the huts are, if you're in private rooms, it's pretty much just like a hotel. You shouldn't have any need for the sleeping bag liners. But if you are in a shared dormitory, then yeah, make sure you've got that liner with you so that you're as comfortable as possible. The huts do all have electricity, but they will not have Wi-Fi, they don't have internet, and they are unlikely to have mobile or cell phone coverage at all. But they do certainly have electricity and hot water as well. There is sometimes best to be aware that you are sharing with other people. There are curfews, so the lights will go off. It's usually around about 10 or 10:30 if memory serves. And while there is hot water, you don't want to be in the shower for the whole of breakfast so that nobody else has any later on. So just bear in mind that you are sharing with other people, but it's a great experience, and for me, really makes the trip staying in the huts, either in shared rooms or in your own private ones. Well, I sort of mentioned mobile and cell coverage. You will find that you'll be able to pick up coverage for more than you would probably expect to along the trails. There are some areas, particularly when you start to get more remote, where unsurprisingly it becomes more difficult to pick up service or reception. But throughout the bigger towns, Courmayeur, Chamonix, of course, it should be no problem whatsoever being able to use your phone. I would definitely not rely on having Wi-Fi each and every night. There is Wi-Fi available in a lot of the accommodations, but it can be patchy, so don't rely on having it, but get good use out of it when you've got it, and for the rest of the time just enjoy being in the mountains.
Well, and even if there's no cell service, you can always call the emergency services. That's always an option on your phone. You may have seen this previously. So if there is anything that happens to you on the trail and you don't have cell service, you can still call the emergency services.
And if you do need to make an emergency call in one of the refuges, for example, they will have a landline that you can use. So you will always have access to a phone if need be. So not something to really worry about. Okay, so moving on. So if you don't want to walk one day, how do you get a transfer? So this would depend on what day. Obviously, each itinerary is different. There's not always road access. For example, there's no road access to the Refugio Benati, so it's very difficult for us to sort of arrange a taxi if you're en route to there. We do provide the alternative transport options booklet, which you should have in your information pack. And we can also provide a PDF copy of this if you want just to have the document on your phone, for example. Again, it would just depend on which part of the walk that you require to skip. There's plenty of different options. There's also some gondolas and cable cars as well, if you do want to skip a particular section. So it would be based on sort of what day you want to skip. Also, if there is road access and there's no shuttle service, then we can certainly look at arranging a taxi. These are generally quite expensive, but we should be able to arrange one if need be. Obviously, that's in a sort of extreme circumstance and there's no shuttle in operation. The shuttles generally run throughout July and August. They are quite limited towards the shoulder months, that's June and September. But again, just refer to your transport and options guide, and that has the exact details, including all the timetables.
Yeah, I think people also often ask about if they can go in the same car as the bags. A lot of the time that isn't going to be possible. Unfortunately, they have a huge number of bags that they are transporting all the way around the Mont Blanc Massif, and they also have members of staff that go in the vans with them. If it's dire straits and they have a spare seat, they will try to accommodate you, but they really cannot guarantee it. So in those instances, we would more than likely have to organise a taxi for you, as Craig said. But we can always ask them, but just to be aware that it's certainly not guaranteed.
Yeah. And then regarding how much money to take, again, like I'd say roughly €30 a day, again, depending on what you're planning to buy.
How much beer?
Yeah, how much beer, but also in Chamonix and Courmayeur, there's some very nice restaurants if you wanted to treat yourself. but all those restaurants will take card. So if you were planning on treating yourself or spontaneously decided, you don't need to let out all your money and take it with cash, because you can always get it out when you're walking as well.
Yeah, I would take some more money for Cormayer and Chamonix. These are the only nights that dinner is not included, so you will need to buy your own meal at evening.
With the crampons, I guess Craig's already covered that kind of, the weather's looking fantastic. There'll be no need at all.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, so what's the food like, and can I get food on the trail? The food's excellent for the most part. Bear in mind that you are in the mountains, and when you're in the mountain huts in particular, they get their food helicoptered in. So there are limited choices at some of the accommodations. If you have dietary requests, please let us know in advance so that we can let the accommodations know. They will always do everything that they can to make sure that you get a good meal at the end of your walk. But if you do have limited dietary restrictions, then you will probably find that the choices aren't quite as varied, and that they might be very similar from one night to the next even. But you, like I say, the accommodations will always do everything that they can to make sure that you get a really good hearty meal at the end of your walk. Another important point with that is that it's really helpful if you remind the accommodations when you check in about your dietary requirements. We will always pass them on for you, and they will always accommodate them for you. But just in case that there's staff that weren't there when the booking was made, best just to reiterate that so that they are prepared for your evening meal. For the most part, in the accommodations, you've got your dinner included everywhere but Courmayeur and Chamonix, as Craig said, and the food is typically very local produce. In some of the more basic hotels, you'll find that they will have a slightly more international style menu with maybe some sort of surprising things on them that you might not expect in the Alps, but it's actually quite nice for a bit of variety as well. And I suppose for lunches, you can ask at your accommodations for a packed lunch. It's best to do that the night before so that they can prepare that for you. I did that at some of the stops, but I also found it was quite helpful in the slightly bigger towns that have supermarkets or grocery stores, that you can pick up bits and pieces that you can put in your bag and sort of create your own picnics as you go along. It's one way to keep the cost of your trip down if you are on a budget, and it also allows you to sort of pick and choose the things that you really want to eat from the local stores. So there are plenty of options for lunches. I really would recommend always either having those picnics or pre-prepared lunches in your bag before you set off, rather than relying on reaching somewhere during your walk. The guidebook will tell you where you can pick food up, but to be honest, it's best to have it ready so that if you're starting to feel like you need a bit of energy or you need something to keep you going, it means you're not forcing yourself to walk to that next rest stop.
Yeah.
You
can just enjoy your food as you go.
Trail mix or something, some nuts, some dried fruit, just sort of easy, quick energy.
Things that aren't too heavy to carry,
Chocolate.
but are delicious.
Yeah. If you are looking to buy lunch on the trail, I'd always just check with your accommodation. They'll know exactly how far to the next stop for you to grab some lunch. So yeah, just always communicate with the accommodation staff, and they've got the best information, the best knowledge of the area. So yeah, just let them know, and they'll be able to direct you.
Perfect. So where can you find the up-to-date information on the bus transfers? We'll have the most up-to-date information in your info pack. Just make sure you have the 2017 guide. I know some of you that have booked earlier still have the old unrevised one. There was an email sent out with all the new information, so just double check your emails and make sure you have the most up-to-date information, which we've already sent you. And otherwise, if you're not quite sure, just give us an email. It's best to have all the information you need.
And finally, from our frequently asked questions, can I drink water from the streams? Alpine water is delicious, and you will find as you go along the walk, there are areas where you can drink the water that is in the streams. It will always be listed as eau potable, which is French for drinkable water. don't drink from anywhere that doesn't have that sign next to it. But you can fill up your water bottle pretty regularly en route. Always make sure, same with food, that you have enough to get you going through the day. Yeah, make sure that you've got some water with you to at least get you started, and then you can fill up as you go along. It's pretty safe to drink the water in the accommodations as well. If for any reason it's not, if they've got their own specific reasons for that, they'll tell you. But other than that, you can drink water from your hotels.
Perfect. Now I think we're going to open up to your questions.
Yeah.
So let me just get the post-its quickly.
The fun bit.
Here we go. So
Michael asked, are the bags available at the Refuge des Matettes? Yes, they are. Okay, so we can, yeah. Yep. Yes, Michael.
Short and simple.
Yes, you can arrange a bag transfer to and from the Refuge des Matettes. So that's not a problem at all.
Yeah, and so I have a little question from Greg. Your bags will be brought to every accommodation, and hopefully are there before you. But sometimes, if you're a fast walker, you might be there before your bags. So don't get, if they're not there by 5. I'd say give us a call if it's any later than 5. But before 5, don't worry, they're on their way. The Danish have lots of stops to make.
Absolutely. I've got Thomas here who wants to know, is a small laptop safe to include in the luggage transfer? That's quite a difficult one. I would definitely recommend not bringing any of your valuables with you. If you absolutely have to have a tablet or a small laptop, make sure it's at least well packed and it's covered, because the bags do get sort of heaved on and off of vans all day. So just to be on the safe side, I would avoid it if you can. And if you can't, make sure that it's wrapped up in a towel that's really, really secure within your luggage. Aside from that, if you can use your phone, then that's probably best for you.
Yeah. Okay, so Dave Mackay has asked, how much is the shuttle transfer to and from Geneva? So this will depend on the time of the transfer and if it's a sterling booking or a US dollar booking. Generally, it's about £35 per person each way, and US dollars about 50 or 55 US dollars again each way. If it is a later transfer or a unsociable hour transfer, for example, later in the morning, it can be more expensive, but also we will let you know if there's an additional supplement. Yeah, so that pretty much, yeah, £35 or 50 US dollars.
Perfect. I have some questions about francs versus euros. So, sorry, I think this is the wrong part. If you're coming from Italy, I would recommend picking up francs in advance, because you can't pick up francs in Pomeranians, not to my knowledge. So I'd bring francs with you. If you are going through Geneva, though, or any other city in Switzerland, you'll pick up francs there. Yes, so most of your trip is euros, but there are, depending on your itinerary, sort of 2 nights that potentially are in Switzerland. So just double check what itinerary you're on and see how many nights you're spending in Switzerland and allocate your francs accordingly. So usually you're 1 or 2, just depending on itinerary, and I do recommend bringing it in cash.
I've got a question from Anne. We've not received our information pack and leave late August. Will we get it following final payment? So your final balance will be due 6 weeks before your departure, and we will always get your information pack out to you within 4 weeks of your departure. If for any reason you still haven't received your information pack, get in touch with your destination specialist, and we will see that gets posted out to you. It might have gone missing in the post or something like that, so please let us know so that you're well prepared and you've got everything that you need prior to your departure. Yeah, a similar question from Julie, actually, who is leaving on July 28th and walking on August 1st. Julie, if you could just, again, get in touch with your destination specialist, we'll be able to find out what's happened with your information pack, and we'll see that one gets out to you. If you're, I forget which date we're on, we'll be able to get that to you, no problem. Yeah, that's not
just sort of comment on that. If you are leaving, for example, the States or Australia or anywhere at all to do the Tour du Mont Blanc trip, if if you could let us know when you're departing, just to make sure that we can get your information back to your home address. Obviously, don't want to send this if you've left the country already. It's just a waste of a pack. I mean to send another one to the first accommodation. So if you are departing much sort of earlier before your trip start date, just get in touch and we'll try and get a pack out as soon as possible for you.
Perfect. I have a question here from Caitlin. Caitlin? Caitlin. There we go. Sorry, Caitlin. When do people sort of start their walking day and when do they end? So it really is up to you. I know in the Alps, people usually start off earlier rather than later. So I wouldn't, if you really want to have like a long line, completely up to you, but most of the refuges actually have sort of set breakfast times. And your breakfast is available from 7 to 8, and you might push it with 8:15, but they want they want you out and walking. And usually it's a good idea to get started early, just in case you do have a big day. You don't arrive super late and tired. You'd rather just get a kickstart on the day. But so if you're, I'd say roughly expect to start walking at 9, and depending on day, be back at 4. But again, this really depends day on day, and if you want to do the full walk, or if you're taking buses or gondolas. So, but I'd say allocate all day for the walking. Yeah,
I think with that as well as having set breakfast times at the mountain huts, there are also set evening meals. So it's usually 7 a.m. for breakfast and 7 p.m. for dinner. So you don't want to be coming in later than that, because you will definitely need good food after a day walking. Generally speaking, same with all walking trips. If you can get an early start, it just means that you've got that whole day ahead of you to sort of go at your own pace. You're not forcing yourself to walk any faster than is really comfortable. So yeah, I would agree with that.
So we've had a number of questions about the weather in September. So again, this is really difficult to predict, especially in the French and Italian Alps. So we can't tell exactly what the weather's going to be like. In previous years, we've been okay with the weather in September, but again, it's completely unpredictable. Generally, it does get colder towards September. Obviously, the winter's coming, and it's starting to cool down, and the potential snow could come in. But again, just refer to the links that we've put. Just check the weather before you head out, and just go on that basis. But in previous years, we've had no problem with the weather in September.
Well, and usually if there's snow, it's a tiny little sprinkling. You're not walking through knee-deep snow. Again, you never know, but from past experience,
yeah,
if there's snow, it's tiny at best.
Got a question from Andrew, which is, which huts do not have bag delivery? So just to reiterate, there are only 3 huts that you cannot get your bags delivered to. That is the Refuge Elisabetta, the Refugio Bonatti, and the Refuge Lac Blanc. They don't have any road access, so you can't get your bags delivered. If you're staying at motets or any of the other huts along the way, you'll be able to get your bags delivered there if you've booked the transfer.
Just still talking about the bag transfer, Dawn has asked if we can mail your trekking gear back to the US. Unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to provide that service. We can only operate the bag transfer around the Tour du Mont Blanc trail, so unfortunately we won't be able to help you with that, Dawn. I'm sure there's a number of different shipping companies online that you can use. What have I used before? Parcel to Go, or yeah, lots of different services that you can find online. But unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to help with the shipping.
So a question about water and drinking water, and if you need a purification kit. No, you don't need a purification kit. If the hotel has unsafe water, there will be bottled water available to you, so you can fill up your water bottles before you go as well. So no need for a water purification kit.
I've got a question from John, which is, how crowded or busy is the trail in the first 2 weeks of August? I was out on the trail myself in the first 2 weeks of August, so from first-hand experience, it is busy because it's always popular. The trip has such a short window in which you can walk it, from mid-June through to mid-September, and it's got such a huge appeal that you will find that it's always busy, but it's not overcrowded. That is the most important thing. You will always, there won't be a day where you don't see people on the trails and on the paths. but you won't be fighting for space, and you won't be walking like ants on an anthill. You will still be able to enjoy the beauty of the Alps, but you'll be able to get to know people along the way as well, which is nice.
So we've got a question about the app that we've launched. So after this webinar, we'll just post a link so you can download the app onto your phone. It's very easy to download, straightforward. I could even do it. So yeah, we'll post that after.
I have more water questions. So if you want, you can carry as much water as you want. There's no limitation to how many water bottles you can bring with, how many bottles you can fill up. So if you want to carry 3 liters of water, fill up 3 liters of water and take it with you. So no limit at all.
A question about poor weather conditions and waymarking. So is it well marked enough to cope with poor weather conditions? Bad weather can come in quite quickly in the Alps, and although the trip is well waymarked, you need to really keep your wits about you. That's why it's so important to have these maps with you. I found that for me, I only use the maps to sort of consolidate what I already knew, because it's so well waymarked and very well walked that the guidebook and the waymarking for the most part were enough. But the maps are absolutely vital to have on hand in case you do doubt yourself in any way, and same goes in poor weather. This is what you'll need to navigate you if the weather is poor. Make sure that you've got that transport document with you, the bad weather and alternative transport options, because that can also help you get off the trail if you need to and pick up transport if there is any available.
Yeah, just to comment on the maps, it's always good just to take the maps out just before you head out and just mark exactly the route, exactly where you're going to stay. It's quite fun to do, and you basically work out the best bits of the trail that you're going to see and exactly where you're going on the route. So yeah, definitely get the highlighters out.
I have a question from Pat about luggage tags. You only need 1 luggage tag for your bag the entire trip. Just put your name, your trip on it, and maybe your reference number as well, so that we can trace it just in case it goes on walkabout. And I have another one from Thomas Well about lunches. How much do the packed lunches cost? Usually it's somewhere between €5 to €7. It really depends on place. You usually get a sandwich, piece of fruit, a granola bar. So it's kind of very standard packed lunch. If you remember being a kid and the lunch that your mom packed you, probably similar to that, maybe?
I've got a question from Anne Whitworth. So does Cormier have options to buy walking poles or rent? Yes, there's plenty of shops in Cormier and Chamonix, so you can hire or buy some walking poles if need be. So that's not a problem at all.
And in a similar vein, we've got quite a few people asking about getting laundry done when they're in Cormier, or at any of the accommodations along the way. In Cormier there is a laundrette. I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I didn't use a laundrette. I found that the couple of changes of clothes that I had were enough for the walk. Of course, if you do get soaking wet during rain while you're out walking, then your accommodations have drying facilities, but they will not all have the possibility of laundering your clothes for you. Courmayeur, which is halfway around your trip, is where you would be able to do that if you really had to. But I think for the majority of people it won't be necessary to actually have to do that.
So Tom and Terry have asked, if you have a private room in the refuge, will we not need sleeping bag liners? So as Erin commented earlier, the private rooms in the refuges are very similar to a hotel room, so you shouldn't require the sleeping bag liner. If you are in a dormitory space, now we would certainly recommend that you bring the liner just between you and the bedding. Also, you will have bedding and quilts provided, but these aren't washed every single night. So just for hygiene reasons, I would bring a sleeping bag liner. But if you do have a private room, then that's not necessary.
So I have a question from Dave about the Sky Run in September. Now, I have to be honest, I've never heard of the Sky Run. There's an ultramarathon on from the 23rd of 28th, from the 28th of August to the 3rd of September, and that will make the trail busier. There are different races that are on then, so you will have runners on the trail. So if you are just aware, it won't be the entire time of your trip, but usually just one day when the runner, one of the heats pass you pretty much. So just be aware that you will see them out running. It does make town a lot busier. It also makes it a lot livelier. It has a great atmosphere. So I wouldn't be put off by it at all, but just be aware that you will be sharing the trail with runners. And at least you're not running it.
That's true. Paul's asked, in regards to the shorter itinerary, where can you catch a bus or a taxi? Again, Paul, just refer to the alternative transport guide. We've got links to each sort of shuttle and bus timetable. So if need be, you can take the bus if you are wanting to shorten a particular day or stage. Again, we could provide a taxi for you if there's not a shuttle in operation, but you will need to pay for this. In general, the buses are free, but again, refer to the guide. It is dependent on which shuttle and which day.
Yeah, and that shorter itinerary that you're talking about there, Paul, the reason that it's shorter is because there are some days where you have to take transport in order to cut certain sections. So that will be getting you from Courmayeur to Champagne, excuse me. And there's a couple of buses that you have to take that day, which is really clearly detailed in that bad weather and alternative transport document, as well as getting you from the stops just before Chamonix into Chamonix itself. You'll need to use the gondolas as well. So those are the only ones that you will have to use, and the other ones, as Craig says, you can pick up in that transport document that we provide.
Yeah. Right, we'll take a couple more questions. And then we need to go and answer your email questions. So, is there soap and shampoo provided in the hotels? This would just depend on the accommodation. Generally, the refugees won't provide soap or shampoo, but certainly the larger hotels, for example, in Les Houches, Courmayeur, and Chamonix. Again, it would just be dependent. I would always recommend you just pack your own sort of small soap or shampoo that you can bring. But yeah. In general, the larger ones will be provided.
Perfect. 2 questions from David and David. We have, do you need rain pants? I'd say bring them with. Me personally, when walking in rain, I walk in running leggings. So, but it can rain, and some of these alpine storms can be quite large. So I'd say bring some rain pants just in case.
I would definitely take them. They're so lightweight that it's worthwhile having, because there is nothing worse than getting drenched at the beginning of your walk and being stuck in those trousers for the rest of the day. So for all the way, it's definitely worth having.
Yeah, if you know it's going to be ready, it might be a good idea to bring them back like a second pair of socks, because if your boots get really wet, it might be nice to have dry feet just for a little while. Also, another question from David: how big should your backpack be? It really depends on if you have the baggage transfer or not. I'd say if you don't have the baggage transfer, like 40 liters maybe. I know that's relatively small, but you don't want to be carrying tons of stuff. If you do have the baggage transfer, 30. Again, you don't need a huge backpack. You should just be carrying your lunch and sort of some layers, but you're not carrying tons of stuff with you. Perfect.
And one final one: what's the maximum altitude of the tour? Which is from Dave. At no point during the tour will you be going any higher than 2,600 meters, and that's what you need to be insured up to. So there's no, as we said earlier, there's no altitude training that you need to undertake. The altitude itself shouldn't really be affecting you. It's not high enough for that. So long as you're insured up to 2,600 meters, you will be just grand.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, guys, for coming. It was great having you here.
Yep, we'll just do some top tips.
Oh, sorry. I'm already over it.
I think that top one is from me, actually, and I think Craig already mentioned what I found was really helpful was to take 2 different coloured highlighters, and each night before we set out walking, we would highlight the next day's trail, and it really helped to visualise the trip that you're going on the following day. It was really helpful for that.
Yep. So my top tip If you do have an extra day in Chamonix at the end, or you do have some extra time, certainly go up the Aiguille du Midi. This goes up to just over 3,800 metres, and you're right next to Mont Blanc. So you get fantastic views of the Mont Blanc Massif and down to Chamonix as well. So get yourself up there.
Perfect. My tip's practical one. Ziploc bags. Take some Ziploc bags with. They're great to put your phone with if you need to waterproof it, to put your lunch in. You never know when you need a Ziploc bag. I'd say bring some with.
That is a good tip.
Yeah, I know.
The next one down is from our product manager, Sarah, and I fully support that as a good tip. If you want a leisurely breakfast and a really enjoyable morning and you're staying at the Hotel Bouton d'Or, which is in Courmayeur, really make the most of their breakfast buffet. It's fantastic, and everybody on the trip, as you walk around, everybody talks about it. If you like cake for breakfast, you're in luck.
Yeah, and finally, Neil, who's not here today, recommends that you take some walking poles. Minna commented earlier, if you do use walking poles, also there are some steep ascents and descents, so poles will definitely help. So just make sure you've got the correct kit.
Yep.
Cool.
And a bit of all of the other links and things that you will need are on the screen for you just now. And I think we'll wrap it up there. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining us for this. If you've got any other questions, feel free to get in touch anytime, and we'll be happy to help you out and get you set for going on your adventure.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great trip.
Bye.